We are going through every position for your waiver wire this week. Yes, including tight end, because I have some teams where maybe we have drafted Dallas Goedert or Kyle Pitts, where we are probably going to be looking at a replacement option. Now, our first wide receiver, though, I will say he should be rostered in your league already. I'm going to assume that maybe only 10% of the people watching this video maybe have not already picked him up. But somehow Romeo Doubs is only rostered in 54% of Yahoo leagues right now. No idea how this is the case. He was on our waiver wire video last week, may have been on there the week before as well. On Thursday, he had 13 targets. He did run more routes than anybody else in Green Bay with 37. I understand you're probably already looking at him rostered. Just in case he's not, I do want to be realistic with expectations of him going forward, though. I will say that Christian Watson and Aaron Jones both were on snap counts this past week. Obviously, as we have a fully healthy Aaron Jones, as we have a fully healthy Christian Watson in this offense, you are more likely than not going to see Romeo Doubs fade back just a bit. He has been dominating the targets in Green Bay over the beginning of the season. You're most likely going to see Christian Watson being the wide receiver one. But if we get a bump up from Jordan Love, where Jordan Love begins to look like a good quarterback again, then maybe you can have both Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs as viable options, especially if Luke Musgrave is going to be dealing with a concussion over the next few weeks. Now, going to a wide receiver that will probably be available in your league, Tyler Boyd only rostered in 37% of Yahoo leagues at the moment. Now, interesting call with Tyler Boyd, right? Because we have the T. Higgins hamstring, so T. Higgins is most likely going to be missing some time here. And this naturally opens up Tyler Boyd to play right alongside Jamar Chase. We understand that there really aren't too many options in this Cincinnati Bengals passing offense overall. I mean, yeah, I guess you could go through and say, well, Mason, they can throw the ball to the running backs. You can have Chris Evans. You can have Joe Mixon getting involved as receivers. Or Mason, you can maybe have Irv Smith Jr. picking up the target ball. No, typically what you're going to see in Cincinnati is they funnel the majority of that target volume through the wide receivers to the very top of this roster. Not a roster that typically runs out there a wide receiver 4, a wide receiver 5. Like, KC will go 8 wide receivers deep and spread it around to everybody. Cincinnati typically stays very concentrated at the very top end. Now, what is going to be frustrating here with Cincinnati is the fact that obviously Joe Burrow just simply is not good right now. We can blame it all on the injury, but regardless of where the blame lies or doesn't, as of today, Joe Burrow is a bottom 5 to 10 quarterback in the NFL with his overall play so far. Now, if you're going to disagree with me, please look at the bottom quarterbacks in terms of adjusted yards per pass attempt this season. I think we could see Boyd be viable if two things happen. One, Joe Burrow somehow, some way gets healthy again. And two, T. Higgins is going to miss a considerable amount of time here. So Tyler Boyd definitely has to be on the radar, especially for deeper leagues. Now, someone that was actually pretty damn good this past week, Michael Wilson went out there, and Michael Wilson kind of turned himself into a full-time starter for this Arizona Cardinals offense. Now, with that being said, are we super pumped? Probably not, right? I mean, because if you are looking at this is a spot where we can say, oh, okay, well, at the end of the day, I mean, you have the Arizona Cardinals offense as one of the worst offenses in the NFL this season. You really have no idea what the quarterback play is going to be. Now, of course, if we get Kyler Murray back in, then all of a sudden Michael Wilson can be very appealing. But against the 49ers defense, arguably the toughest or second toughest defense in the NFL, you did have Michael Wilson going out there and seeing 7 receptions off of 7 targets, 76 receiving yards, and multiple receiving touchdowns. He's a rookie. He's someone that's going to continue to get better. So if you wanted to roster him right now and see if possibly in the long term, when you get Kyler Murray back in, if he's viable, definitely think that he is on the radar. Now, someone that first popped up on the radar last week at wide receiver that I was wanting to be a little hesitant on was Marvin Mims. Now, the reason I was hesitant on Marvin Mims, even though he did look pretty good 2 weeks ago, he looked pretty good 3 weeks ago as well with the big plays, is fundamentally, I mean, we didn't really see the usage in this offense. He wasn't running a lot of routes. He wasn't even on the field for many snaps. But this week, we do get a sense that he is expanding his role overall. He does run 12 routes in this Denver Broncos offense. Now, of course, this is by no means putting him at an every down player, and he will not come close to our top 24 wide receivers he will not come close to or even our top 60 flex plays this week. But similar to Michael Wilson, this is a rookie that can continue to get better as the season goes on. And we were getting more and more usage and more route participation from Marvin Mims in this offense. I mean, this is a depth chart that's kind of wide open, right? Essentially what we need to see is if you are looking at the routes run in this offense this past week, Brandon Johnson ran 12 routes with Marvin Mims running 12. If Marvin Mims can capture those routes, which I believe he can over the next few weeks, then all of a sudden he's the wide receiver 3 in Denver and viable in leagues with multiple flex spots. Now, if you play in a 10-team league with only 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, where wide receiver depth doesn't matter, then honestly, you shouldn't pick up any of these wide receivers outside of Romeo Doubs. But these later wide receivers are going to be more so for those 12-team formats where you have, say, 2 wide receivers and 2 flex spots, or where you start 3 wide receivers and 1 flex. Now, sliding down over to some tight ends, these are guys that we can look to. Maybe if you drafted Pat Frymuth, maybe if you went through, drafted Kyle Pitts, like I may or may not have, Dalton Schultz, like I may or may not have. I mean, definitely these are players that could possibly save you off the waiver wire. But real quick, as we get to these plays, if you have not done so already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you want to check out any of these pick'ems on Underdog Fantasy for tonight, you can find that link in the description, find it in the comment section. If you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $500. Plus, you're going to be getting our updated rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. And you're going to be getting a Geno Smith special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard against the New York Giants this Monday night. Now, side note, my favorite pick'em right now on Underdog is going to be for Jackson Smith-Njigba to have more than 26.5 receiving yards tonight. Really hope that we get a breakout game. Now, going over to our next player, we are looking at Cole Kmet. With Cole Kmet, he goes out there, he dominates, right? And a lot of best ball teams, I mean, he actually does us well where he goes and he has 9 targets in this offense. He has multiple receiving touchdowns, 7 receptions, 85 receiving yards. And this is a continued trend now of Cole Kmet actually seeing a considerable amount of volume in this offense. Cole Kmet so far this season has had 18 receptions in this offense. And Cole Kmet has had 24 targets. So Kmet's out there averaging about 6 targets per game in Chicago. Now, this is a tight end that is incredibly young. If you look at his market share numbers last season, Cole Kmet was actually pretty good in Chicago. Everything hinges on Justin Fields and the performance of this overall passing offense. The market share numbers are there. If you believe that Justin Fields will be better than he has been going forward through the rest of this season, then Cole Kmet will be a viable tight end. Now, I personally don't think that Justin Fields has all of a sudden turned into a good real-life quarterback. I think he's good in fantasy because rushing upside. But real life, I don't believe so. So I would actually probably look at this next tight end with Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson rostered in 53% of Yahoo leagues, so currently the same exact amount as Cole Kmet. And with Jake Ferguson, it's a tight end that, I mean, it's hard to look at the snap data because keep in mind, this was a very weird game environment where they just blew the Patriots out 38-3. But I mean, he did go out there. He did have 27 routes run. It's right in line to pretty much what we saw with Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb at 30. And if you're going to be looking at the overall target volume, very consistent target earner so far in Dallas. You had 7 targets this week, 7 targets last week, 4 targets in week 2, and 7 targets in week 1. Earlier in the season, he did struggle with drops, which kind of suppressed his overall fantasy football value. We talked about him actually getting the role in the usage that you wanted to see earlier in this season. He just had to start playing better. It looks like maybe he is putting it together. It looks like maybe he is going to be a little bit better going forward. I mean, keep in mind with Jake Ferguson, it would make sense if this was a player that took a little bit of time, right? I mean, yeah, Dalton Schultz as the guy last year. Ultimately, we haven't really seen Jake Ferguson as that starting tight end. And also, he's only 24 years old this season. So we know these tight ends typically don't even really break out to their 25, 26, 27. Now, going over to our next tight end, this is going to be for super deep formats. Actually, we'll save him for a little bit. We're going to throw another guy on here. Gerald Everett, do not pick him up this week. put him on your watch list and consider picking him up going into week 6. You don't want to pick him up right now because you're going to be wasting a roster spot. Chargers will have a bye week in week 5. Donald Parham did see a wrist injury in this game. And now if you're looking at this Los Angeles Chargers offense, if you potentially have both no Mike Williams and no Donald Parham when we're coming out of the bye week here, Gerald Everett could look like a very viable tight end. So put him on your watch list. Don't pick him up right now, but someone that you could potentially pick up if you really wanted to. Cade Otton is a very intriguing player. If you are looking at Cade Otton, this is a tight end that's, actually been the full-time starter pretty much for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He runs 35 routes in this game, which is equivalent to what you have with Chris Godwin. He's right there. There are only 39 potential routes run. So, you're liking the route participation. And if you're going to be looking at what we have with the targets in this offense, he does go out there, he sees 4 targets. That's a little good, little bad, right? What we are really wanting to see is we are wanting to see him go out there and actually just be a more consistent player in terms of the efficiency. With Cade Otton, he has been a very inefficient tight end so far, but he's kind of in that similar boat to Gerald Everett, right? In that these are guys that we definitely want to be adding to our watch list. If Mike Evans is still going to be injured coming out of the bye week, and all of a sudden you only have really Chris Godwin as the go-to target in this offense, I think Otton and Everett, if those injuries do roll into week 6, could be viable options then. Now, going over to what we have with some running backs, let's look at Chuba Hubbard here. And with Chuba Hubbard, I want to be on record saying this is not going to be the role that he'll have going forward. He was the de facto starting running back for the Carolina Panthers this week, where Chuba Hubbard had both more snaps and more touches than Miles Sanders. Now, a big reason for this is Miles Sanders dealing with a groin injury coming into the week. Miles Sanders clearly not at 100%. Going forward, I do think that this is going to be Miles Sanders' backfield when fully healthy. But until that point, Chuba Hubbard definitely going to be on the watch list for us, and definitely someone that I'm fine rostering at the bottom end of our team. Y'all know that I talk about this all the time, but if you play in, say, that 12-team league or that 10-team league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, wide receiver depth really not going to matter that much. I would rather go ahead and roster as many running backs as we possibly can, like the guy that we talked about last week, Tajee Spears, like who we're talking about this week in Chuba Hubbard, where if you were to see an injury go down to that running back in front of them, then all of a sudden they do actually look like they can contribute and realistically make a difference to your fantasy football league. Now, of course, as you expand the starting wide receiver requirements, as you expand the amount of flex spots that you're going to be playing on a week-to-week perspective, then we become more and more interested in those depth wide receivers overall. But at this point, I think Chuba Hubbard definitely a running back that we can go through. Pick up. You don't know if Miles Sanders is going to be getting to 100%. And if we were to see this groin injury get more serious, then Chuba Hubbard would be a must-start running back in any games Miles Sanders misses. Now, going over to our next guy, we're going to be looking at Jaleel McLaughlin. This is a running back that I'm not going to lie to you, I do not think is a good prospect. If we were to go through and if we were to look at the players I was excited about coming in to the NFL draft, this would have been someone at the very bottom of the list. This is someone that I probably wouldn't have spent a second thinking about. But, things change. All of a sudden, this is a player that you are saying, okay, well, I guess he is the starting running back for the Denver Broncos going forward alongside Samaje Perine. This will be a 1-2 running back by committee. The Javonte Williams injury does look pretty serious at this point. I think Samaje Perine will be your priority ad, of course. The issue is Samaje Perine is already rostered in the majority of leagues. Now, McLaughlin does go see these 7 carries in comparison to Samaje Perine at 6. He looks like the much more dynamic running back. He looks like the much better running back in this backfield. And at the same time, if you're looking at their receiving volume as well, he did have 3 targets in comparison to Samaje Perine at 2. So he leads the team in carries at the running back position. He leads the team in targets at the running back position. And he looks more dynamic on a per touch basis. So I think that if we had to prioritize an ad, he would be the guy right now. I think that you could see him stepping into maybe 60% of this backfield where you have Samaje Perine getting 40%. Like we said, you have Samaje Perine as a running back that's rostered already in the majority of leagues. Now, some defensive streamers, just in case you need a defense for this week, we are going to be looking at the Bengals. Bengals are rostered in 70% of leagues, so obviously will be very, very difficult to get them. But hell, if you're in one of the 30% of leagues where the Bengals are sitting out there, go pick them up. They played the Cardinals this week. I think you probably do have a bounce back game. Considering what just happened against the Tennessee Titans, obviously, you could also have a team going out there and dropping the Bengals DST. And then if we are playing in a deeper format where we are not going to have those very appealing defenses to pick up, a long shot, a long ball would be the Houston Texans against the Atlanta Falcons. If you are looking at Houston here, I mean, they did play well against Pittsburgh. Keep in mind, it was Pittsburgh. We got to see Mitch Trubisky for part of that game. But Desmond Ridder just put up another horrendous performance, and I wouldn't even be surprised if we had a quarterback change going into week 5. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. Go down there, drop a like on it. You can ask me anything in the comment section. If you think I missed a player, I'd be happy to go through and talk about that with you. And if you don't want to go to the comment section, I'll be live tonight. So just come out to our live stream. We're going to stream every single night until 2024. And last but not least, if you want to check out any of these pick'ems over on Underdog Fantasy, you can find that link in the description and in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $500. Plus, you're going to be getting our updated rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. And you are going to be getting a Geno Smith special pick'em, more than less than half a passing yard against the New York Giants tonight. But thank you again. I really do appreciate you. I really hope you have a great day and really hope we get to see you out in the live stream later tonight.